Jimbo's Garage.
All right, so welcome back for part 2. This is the Louver gate project that I've been working on. If you recall the last video, I did that screen wall. Well, this is this part 2 of this section right here. Pretty cool little gate. Again, this is something that I didn't design. This is designed by the designer. And we're working off of some 2-inch by 3-inch rectangular tubing. This is 120 wall. And you can see I'm making all my cuts right here. You know, one thing to note, I'm operating off the slugger here with the Mercer Steel Thunder blade. Now, this is a blade that I've been working with for the last 2 or 3 months, and I got to say that this thing is extremely good. It's super sharp, and I've made hundreds of cuts with this thing, and it's shown no signs of dulling at all. But we're just moving along right here. You know, there's some things that when you do stuff like this, I know a lot of you guys don't understand, but see, I work by myself a lot, and you know, trying to run a camera, trying to think about how to build the project, trying to make the cuts, trying to move everything around, there's a lot going on oftentimes, and you know, you just think that everything is moving along, and you're doing a good job, and sometimes it just doesn't work in your favor, and you'll see that here in just a minute. You can see how easily that blade just cuts right through this material, and you know, nice and smooth and perfect cuts. And then before, you know, I try to piece things together here on the welding table, I'm just going to take a flap disc and go around and kind of deburr all the edges. You know, it makes it for a nice smooth fit, and everything fits together fairly nice. You know, these cuts may not be absolutely perfect 45, but they're pretty darn close. And, you know, just by cleaning things up like this, they fit together really good. So it was right about this point right here when I'm starting the assembly here fairly quick. Dropping the pins in, getting ready to square it up on the table. And just like that, like I normally do. And they fit together perfect, just like they're supposed to. And then I realized I made a huge mistake. Okay, so after all that measuring and all that cutting and doing everything what you think is right, I just realized I made a huge mistake. This gate, I've cut it out on this angle right here, when in fact it needs to be on this angle like this. So therefore, I buy my material, well, hopefully I don't make any mistakes. And unfortunately, this is a huge mistake. I'm going to have to go down to the metal supply store and get some more metal. And of course, this isn't just your old 1.5-inch square tube 063. This has got to be 120 wall, 2-inch by 3-inch rectangular tubing. Not exactly the cheapest material out there. Nevertheless, everybody makes mistakes. I'm always in a hurry, and this is what I got right here. Okay, got all the new material, got everything cut on the right angle this time. So now, let's get this thing nice and squared up, get the lockbox put in, and weld this thing together and move forward in this project. All right, so a day later, got everything all squared away. No harm, no foul. Well, a little bit. Cost me a little bit, but I was able to salvage some of the material for the short ends, but I did have to buy a piece for the long pieces again. All right, you can just see I'm clamping everything together. You know, this thing works really, really good, this welding table. You can just see this has been such a time saver for me. I'm able to just get everything perfectly square and clamp down nice and tight, double checking for square, be sure my measurements are where they need to be. I just don't want to make another mistake. And then everything is just solid and just where it's supposed to be. And it's time to start tacking and welding the frame together here. So I'm just tacking right here, and I'm going to go all the way around and weld as much as I possibly can while I've got it all welded down nice and tight. And I was going to get 3 sides of this, you know, mostly 3 sides, and then when I flip it over, I'll be able to get the other side. So I decided to just go ahead and just get everything welded up here as much as I can while I've got it all clamped down to the table. Keep everything nice and square, nice and straight. All right, so I'm just dropping in some weld right here. Now this is, keep in mind, this is all going to get ground down. I like to grind my welds, especially on the outside corners like this. I like a nice smooth transaction. Make it look nice and square and smooth. And I'm just getting the welding box, or the lock box I should say, welded in here. Kind of tricky. You know, I set this box in the center of the tube. You know, it was the best look, and so with that I had to have this 3/4 inch flat bar stock there to cover up the corner. And you might see that I've got some anti-spatter from CRC. Their line of Weld products on there that keeps the spatter down. Stuff works pretty good. Once it's all welded in, just grinding everything as smooth and as flat as I can with the flap disc. I'll end up catching it a little bit later with some sanding block or some files, but for the most part, this did a pretty good job of that. And then just go around and just get all the outside edges. You know, this is a 60 grit. It seems to be my go-to grit for stuff like this right here. I've like I mentioned before, I've used the 24 and the 36 grit, and they work great. They hog a lot of material off, but for this right here, the 60 grit works good. Less sanding marks, and you know, keeps everything nice and smooth. You can see it works pretty good. I probably will come back after all of this is done and catch it with a sanding block, and that really smooths things out. A couple licks with a sanding block works fine. All right, so we're on to the louver part of the gate right here. Now, this is some 3/16 by 3 inch flat bar stock. Now you can only imagine how heavy this thing is. I think this gate weighed in just under 300 pounds. Which is ridiculous, but again, I'm not the designer of it. The designer knew that this is going to be a heavy gate, that this is what they're looking for. So these louvers are going to be going on like a 45-degree angle, and I need to notch around the lockbox. So I'm putting a fresh blade, a Black Lightning blade from Mercer on here, and I'm going to notch out the section of 3/16 by 3 inch flat bar stock. This is what's going to get around that lockbox. You know, I'm trying to not do any overcut, or at least not too much overcut. I will be able to straighten that up, you know, if I do. And then a couple of 45s on the end. I just didn't want it to have any sharp edges, and I just smooth things out right there. This should fit right in. It should fit right in. Okay, and then these are a couple of jigs that I made just for the angle, and you can see that I'm trying to fit this thing in. Thought I knew which way it was going to go. Finally figured it out. I knew I'd get it sooner or later. All right, everything fits in there really good, and I'm tacking the first one into place right here. And then I'm going to go ahead and start dropping them in. You can see out in the first one, I got a spacer there. It's about a 1 inch spacer off the side. I did make my measurements. You might be able to see those marks on the bottom end where I am right there on there. They're very faint, but they're there to be sure that I get equal spacing when I do finish at the other end, that everything is going to look right. You know, this little jig worked pretty good for that. I tried to figure out how I was going to do that, and didn't take too much time to figure something out. And you know, jigs always, if you're doing multiple things, I'm telling you, you know, take a little bit of time to make a jig, and it makes life a lot easier. Now you might see a little flex in this 1x3, and there is. They flex a little bit, but they are okay with it. The architect is okay with it. I let him know that this is going to happen, and he was fine. He actually wanted to use some 1/8 thick material, and that would have been a real problem, I think. So quarter would have been much heavier. So I settled between the 3/16, and it really, ultimately, it wasn't that bad. You know, I got to say, this is coming together pretty good. And you know, out of all the projects, you know, I get here in the shop, this is what I love about this. You're never doing the same thing twice. You know, there's always something different, and everything is a challenge, you know. And I just love that challenge. People come to me with designs and dimensions, and they say, this is what we want. This is what we want it to look like. And I just really enjoy trying to build something. So it's never the same thing twice. It's always something different. It keeps your mind fresh, keeps you going good, and hopefully you don't make any mistakes like I did early on with the with the frame. All right, getting right down to the last one right here, tacking in place. The gate's starting to take shape. It's also starting to get extremely heavy. All right, So I got it up on end, and so the plan here is to go all the way around on both sides. And so I may have mentioned this in the last video, you know, ideally they would like for me to TIG weld this because they didn't really want to see much of a weld at all. They wanted something small. Well, I gave that a shot on the screen wall video, and it just wasn't going to work. And so this is what I opted for. I opted for a small as I could lay anyway, a MIG bead all the way around. You know, I'm not doing any manipulation here. I'm just kind of dragging that thing along, just trying to get the smallest, tightest weld I possibly can. Trying to flip this thing around is when I realized this thing is really heavy, and not looking forward to installing this thing. All right, so you can see the smallness of the beads. Now from here, they look pretty ugly, and hey, they're not the stack of dimes look that everyone's looking for. I wasn't shooting for that. I'm just trying to drag this along. This is going to get powder coated. The powder coat is going to, you know, it's thick, so it's going to not hide, but it's going to cover up these welds pretty good. And I'll show you a shot here of what it looks like all done. You see some nozzle dip right there from Welded on the bottom left. I've been using that. That's the CRC product. Works really good, especially keeps the spatter down inside the nozzle. Really handy stuff to have. You know, this is any chance I can get to be able to have something on my welding table that I don't have to bend down on my knees or get all crazy to do welding is really good for me. And you know, this is really nice. The table's at a good height right here. It makes it easier for me to work, which I enjoy. It makes my production a little bit quicker and easier, and keeps my back from getting sore from bending over in these awkward positions sometimes. All right, so that's what they look like. I cleaned them up a little bit. That's probably as much as I'm going to do right there. I'm going to get this over to the powder coater, and hopefully we'll cover those up pretty good. All right, so now we're on to the side posts of the mounting posts, at least the part that's going to get mounted to, in this case, a block wall on both sides. This is what it's going to hinge from. It's what it's going to latch to. My plan was to keep these posts thinner than the frame themselves because I just wanted to fill that space with the gate more than I did the posts. So this is some 1x3 flat bar stock. This is 120 wall thickness as well. You can see that I just put an end cap on this. I put caps on on these posts. I put caps on the top part only. The bottom part I leave open. Hey, I just converted over to these new Sharpie dual point. I'm not certain what they're called. Dual point. You get a fine point on one side and a medium point on the other. I've been using the medium point forever, and you know, over a period of time, those things flatten out and they get fat and they get hard to get an accurate point. At least this little fine point works really good. It gives me that nice fine little touch right there. Got those on about a multiple pack of those on Amazon. All right, so this is the way I do these things. I've been doing it for a couple of years now. When I'm installing post, this is an 1.125" hole saw, and I drill these things through one side, and then I've got these little rubber caps I get on Amazon, 1.125", and after it's installed, I just pop those caps in there. They work pretty good. And the hole's big enough to run a socket with some bolts or whatever you choose to anchor it to whatever you're anchoring it to. In this case, it's going to be a block wall. I'm using some screw anchors from Hilti. Those things work pretty good. All right, just lining things up right here. Be sure that the spacing is the same size as the opening to be sure that it's going to fit in there. Now, these are some weld-on hinges. I've never used these before. I've had some for a long time. I've never actually used them. Watched a couple of videos on installation on these things, and they seem fairly easy, so I wanted to try it on this gate right here. Now, this is the 6-inch version. This one does not have a grease zert on the end. I just couldn't get it for this particular gate. That's probably what I would prefer. They do make them with and without. This actually has a brass pin and a brass bushing in the center. They make it really easy to weld on. You can see that they have a really thickened edge on one side. Allow you to put a nice bead in there and hold everything in place. So anxious to see how well this is going to work. Looks clean. They say these things hold up to, I believe the weight was 525 pounds. This gate's a little less than 300, so I should be okay. Ran out of material here, but I did happen to have some of this out on my rack outside. Been sitting out there for a year. It's kind of rusty. So I got this surface preparation disc from Mercer, and I'm just going to put that on there, and this is going to make short order of that rust and clean this metal up just like brand new. Should be back in some good shape here. Slightly pitted, but not too bad. And I'm just going to go around and just, I don't need the full length. I only need about 6 feet of it. So I'm just going to grind down what I need. Get all 4 sides. And just like that, cleaned it up pretty good. And another end cap. You know, I've had my share of end caps here in the last couple months. I've probably got welded 75 of these things on different projects. And, you know, I hated doing this for a long time, but now I'm used to it. It doesn't take too much time at all. Just a flap disc and get everything cleaned up. All right, so this one here, I need to notch out around the lock box. It's kind of a, I've got to get this thing cut out here so that the stopper plate of the lock box fits in there and the gate gets flushed to the outside. So a little trickery here, but shouldn't be a problem. I don't want to have too much overcut here. A little bit's not too bad. I can fix it. Just trying to get this thing cut out. Yeah, it took a little bit of time, but it was no problem with Black Lightning cutoff wheel here. All right, so I'm just cleaning this up on the inside. I've made a little bracket that fits right inside. It's a nice tight fit, and that's what we're looking for. I just need to close this gap up right here and just make it look like it's a solid notch in the material. And that thing just drops right in. I'm going to weld that thing all the way around, get it cleaned up, and this project is just about going to be complete. All right, well, there it is. This was a fun project. Looks good. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out the website at jimbosgarage.com. Follow us on Instagram. Check us out on Facebook. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next week.
See you next time on Jimbo's Garage.